It was supposed to be just another Friday night, but the air carried an electricity Emma couldn't shake. She sat nervously in a small, candlelit restaurant in Portland, Oregon, her hands fidgeting with the silver chain around her neck. The place was intimate, warm, and filled with soft chatter and the clinking of glasses, but inside Emma's chest, there was only tension. She had been convinced by her best friend to give dating another chance after months of heartbreak. And yet, sitting here now, watching the clock tick past the arranged meeting time, regrets swirled in her stomach. When he finally walked in, tall, slightly nervous, carrying himself with the kind of hesitation that only comes from someone who's known disappointment, Emma's heart sank. Not because he looked unkind or unpleasant, but because something deep inside her whispered that maybe this was a mistake. She didn't even give herself the chance to listen to his voice fully before the words tumbled out of her mouth, sharp and cutting against the tender silence. She looked him directly in the eyes and said softly, but firmly, "This date is a mistake." High voltage. Before we dive deeper into what happened next, take a moment to pause. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the beauty of unexpected stories, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Hopeful Stories. Your support helps us bring more real, emotional, and life-changing tales to light. High voltage. The man, whose name was Daniel, froze for a moment, taken aback by her bluntness. For a brief second, his face fell, the light in his eyes dimming as though her words had pierced straight through him. But then, instead of anger or disappointment, something remarkable happened. He smiled. Not the polished, fake smile of someone trying to hide their wounds, but a raw, gentle smile that spoke of patience and understanding. He pulled out the chair across from her and sat down, placing his hands on the table as though anchoring himself there. "Maybe it is," he said quietly, his voice carrying both fragility and strength. "But can I tell you why I came anyway?" That sentence caught Emma off guard. She had expected defensiveness, perhaps even irritation, but what she heard was sincerity. Something about his tone stopped her from walking out, and despite herself, she nodded. Daniel leaned back, his eyes soft but unwavering. "I've been stood up twice in the last month. Both times I thought maybe it was me. Maybe I wasn't good enough. Tonight, when I walked in and saw you sitting here, I didn't just see a date. I saw a chance. Not necessarily for love, not yet, but for something more important, a conversation. Because sometimes conversations change us, even if the evening doesn't go the way we planned." Emma's chest tightened. She hadn't expected to feel moved so quickly, but the honesty in his words tugged at the wall she had built around herself. For months, she had been guarding a broken heart after being left by someone she thought she'd spend forever with. She hadn't been ready for another attempt at connection. But here was Daniel, telling her that even if she walked away, the night could still mean something real. Dinner began with hesitation, Emma answering politely at first, her guard still raised. Yet Daniel didn't push. He spoke of small things, his job as a high school art teacher, how he spent his weekends helping his younger sister move into her college dorm, the way he loved photography but never felt good enough to show his work. Slowly, Emma found herself listening more intently, her fork pausing midair as she realized that his stories weren't rehearsed lines meant to impress. They were pieces of himself, unpolished and vulnerable. She shared a little too, though carefully. She mentioned she worked in marketing, that she had grown up in Seattle before moving to Portland for a fresh start. But she avoided the subject of her heartbreak, the one that still kept her awake at night. Yet Daniel noticed the pauses, the way her eyes sometimes dropped when the conversation skirted too close to pain. Halfway through dinner, when the waiter refilled their glasses and the restaurant grew quieter, Daniel spoke words that would shift the night entirely. "You know, when you said this date was a mistake, it hurt for a second. But then I realized, maybe you said that because you've been hurt too. And if that's true, I just want you to know, it's okay to be here, even if you're not ready. You don't have to give me a chance at romance. Just give yourself a chance to breathe again." That was the moment Emma's eyes burned with tears she hadn't planned to shed. She turned away slightly, ashamed of her vulnerability in front of someone she'd just met. But Daniel didn't stare or pressure her. He simply waited, letting the silence carry compassion instead of judgment. For the first time in months, Emma spoke about the man she thought she'd marry, the one who left suddenly, shattering her trust. She spoke about how hard it had been to even show up tonight, how every step toward the restaurant door felt like walking into a storm. Her voice broke at times, but Daniel didn't interrupt. He listened, really listened, in a way that made her feel seen, not pitted. The more she shared, the lighter her chest felt. And the more Daniel responded with gentle understanding, the more she realized that maybe this night wasn't about love at all. Maybe it was about healing. The restaurant closed later than either of them realized, and as they walked outside into the cool Portland night, Emma felt a strange sense of peace. She had entered the evening believing it would be a disaster, but she was leaving with something unexpected, a reminder that human kindness still existed. Before they parted ways, Daniel smiled softly and said, "Even if tonight doesn't lead to anything, I'm grateful for it." Because sometimes what we call a mistake turns out to be the first step toward healing. Emma couldn't reply at first. Her throat was too tight. But when she finally managed words, they were quiet and trembling. "Thank you. I really needed tonight more than I realized." She went home that night, replaying his words in her mind. For the first time in months, she didn't cry herself to sleep because of her heartbreak. She cried because someone had reminded her that she was still worthy of being listened to, still capable of connection, even if she wasn't ready for love yet. Over the following weeks, Emma and Daniel didn't rush into dating. Instead, they became friends. They met for coffee, went on walks, and shared stories not with the pressure of building a romance, but with the comfort of building trust. And slowly, without either of them noticing, the cracks in Emma's heart began to mend. Months later, when Emma finally felt ready to open her heart again, Daniel was there, not waiting impatiently, but standing beside her, willing to walk at her pace. Their love story wasn't born from sparks and instant fireworks. It was born from patience, kindness, and the bravery to admit vulnerability. And that is why Emma later told her friends, with a smile that no longer carried sadness, that the date she once called a mistake turned out to be the most important night of her life. Because it reminded her that love doesn't always appear the way we expect it, but when it's built on understanding and compassion, it can heal the deepest wounds. Rose, if this story touched your heart, please like, share, and subscribe to Hopeful Stories. Your engagement helps us continue to bring you emotional and inspiring real-life tales that remind us of the beauty in humanity. Rose, speech balloon special request. Before you leave, comment below with this simple phrase. Kindness can heal anything. Let's fill the comment section with hope and compassion.